Lauren Mitchell had perfected the art of being invisible. 2 months working in the Pellegrini mansion had taught her exactly how to move through rooms without drawing attention, how to fade into the background of conversations, how to exist in proximity to power without ever touching it. She kept her head down, her voice soft, and her sleeves long. Always long sleeves. Even now, in the suffocating Boston heat of late July, she wore a thin cotton blouse buttoned to her wrists while she chased a 5-year-old boy through the sprawling backyard. Matteo Pellegrini laughed as he zigzagged between the perfectly manicured hedges, his dark curls bouncing with each step. He looked so much like his father, the same sharp jawline beginning to form even at his young age, the same intense brown eyes that could shift from warm to calculating in a heartbeat. But where Nicholas Pellegrini radiated danger, his son was pure light. "You cannot catch me," Matteo called out in his adorable mix of English, and the words his late mother had taught him before she died 3 years ago. Lauren smiled despite the sweat trickling down her back. "I think you might be right. You're too fast for me." The boy stopped running and turned to face her, hands on his hips in an exaggerated display of victory. "I win. You win," Lauren agreed, walking toward him. "But winners still have to drink their juice before lunch." Matteo's expression shifted to one of comical betrayal. "That is not fair. Life rarely is, little man. Come on." They walked together toward the stone patio where Teresa, the housekeeper, had set out lunch. The older woman waved at them from the kitchen window, her weathered face creasing into a smile. Teresa was one of the few people in the house who treated Lauren like a human being rather than just another piece of furniture to be dusted around. Matteo climbed into his chair and reached for the glass of orange juice, his movements enthusiastic and uncoordinated in the way only a 5-year-old could manage. Lauren saw it happening before it actually did, her hand moving forward instinctively, but she was a second too slow. The glass tipped, sending a wave of cold juice directly onto her chest and lap. The liquid soaked through the thin fabric immediately, icy against her overheated skin. Matteo's eyes went wide with horror. "I am so sorry. I did not mean to. Please do not be angry." Lauren forced her voice to stay calm even as panic clawed at her throat. The wet fabric clung to her skin, transparent now, and she needed to change immediately. "It's okay, sweetheart. Accidents happen. I just need to go change quickly." "I am really sorry," he repeated, his voice small. "I know you are. It's really okay." She squeezed his shoulder gently before hurrying toward the service entrance that led to the staff quarters. The Pellegrini mansion was a study in controlled excess. Everything about it whispered old money and older power. Marble floors, crown molding, artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses. Lauren's room was in a separate wing, small but comfortable, with its own bathroom and a window that overlooked the side garden. She locked the door behind her and immediately began unbuttoning her blouse with shaking fingers. The wet fabric stuck to her skin, and she had to peel it away. She was halfway out of it, standing in just her plain white bra with her back to the door, when she heard it open. Lauren froze. Her heart stopped beating for what felt like an eternity. "Teresa, I need the contractor's file. You said it was in the staff office." Nicholas Pellegrini's voice was deep, authoritative, the kind of voice that expected immediate compliance. He stopped talking mid-sentence. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Lauren could feel his eyes on her exposed skin, on the patchwork of scars that decorated her shoulder blade and upper arms. The burn scar on her left shoulder was the worst. A twisted landscape of melted skin where Tyler had held the iron down for what felt like forever. The cuts were thinner, more precise, a roadmap of rage and possession that had taken months to fade from angry red to pale silver. She grabbed for her blouse, trying to cover herself, but her movements were jerky and desperate. When she finally managed to turn around, clutching the wet fabric to her chest, Nicholas was still standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable. Not disgust, not pity, just an intense focus that made her feel more exposed than her partial nudity. "I apologize," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "I thought this was the office." Teresa must have misunderstood. Lauren couldn't speak. Her throat had closed completely. Nicholas stepped back and closed the door with a quiet click that sounded deafening in the sudden silence. Lauren sank onto the edge of her bed, still holding the wet blouse, and tried to remember how to breathe. He had seen, after 2 months of being so careful, of wearing long sleeves in summer heat, of declining to swim with Matteo, of making sure no one ever got close enough to notice, Nicholas Pellegrini had seen everything. She changed into a fresh blouse with mechanical movements, her mind racing through options. She could pretend it never happened. She could quit. She could wait to be fired. Each option felt equally impossible. By the time she returned to the patio, Matteo had finished his lunch and was coloring at the outdoor table. He looked up with worried eyes. "Are you okay? I really did not mean to spill." "I know, baby, I'm fine. Just a little wet juice never hurt anyone." She ruffled his hair, trying to inject normalcy into her voice. The afternoon passed in a blur of activities. Lauren helped Matteo with his coloring, read him 3 stories, and played an elaborate game involving toy cars and imaginary traffic laws. Through it all, she felt the weight of Nicholas's gaze whenever he passed through a room, though he never spoke to her directly. Dinner was always early for Matteo. Lauren prepared his favorite meal with Teresa's help, mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs shaped like octopi. Simple food that made the boy giggle. Nicholas joined them at the kitchen table, something he did occasionally when his schedule allowed. He was different tonight, more present, more focused. He asked Matteo about his day, listened to the breathless retelling of their race in the garden, smiled at the appropriate moments. But his eyes kept drifting to Lauren, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. After dinner, it was time for Matteo's bath and bedtime routine. Lauren ran the water, tested the temperature, and helped him scrub behind his ears, which he always tried to skip. She read him 2 more stories, tucked him in, and kissed his forehead. "Good night, little man. Good night, Lauren. I love you." The words always made her chest ache. "I love you too." She was closing his bedroom door when she saw Nicholas standing at the end of the hallway. He was watching her, his posture relaxed, but his expression anything but. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, the uniform of a man who had finished with business for the day but never truly stopped working. Lauren's pulse quickened. She walked toward him because there was no other exit, no way to avoid this moment. "Miss Mitchell," he said as she approached. "Mr. Pellegrini." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I want to apologize again for walking in on you earlier. That was inappropriate." "It's fine. You didn't know I was there." His eyes searched her face. "Still, it won't happen again." Lauren nodded, desperate to escape this conversation. "If that's all, I should head home." "Of course. Have a good evening." She walked past him, acutely aware of the space between their bodies, of the way he didn't move to give her more room. Her shoulder almost brushed his chest as she passed, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Lauren grabbed her bag from the staff room and left through the side entrance, the same way she always did. The summer air was still thick and hot, clinging to her skin as she walked to her car, a 15-year-old sedan that protested loudly before finally starting. She didn't see Nicholas watching from his office window, phone already in his hand. The call was answered on the first ring. "Boss? Ryan. I need you to do something for me." Nicholas's voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. "Name it. I need a complete background check on Lauren Mitchell. Everything. Where she came from, why she's here, who she was before she started working for me. I need it by tomorrow morning." There was a pause on the other end. "The nanny? Everything okay? Just do it. And Ryan, I want it comprehensive. Medical records if you can get them, previous addresses, employment history, everything. Consider it done." Nicholas ended the call and stood at the window for a long time, watching the empty driveway where Lauren's car had been. The scars he had seen told a story, one written in pain and survival. Burns didn't happen by accident in patterns like that. Cuts that precise didn't come from clumsiness. Someone had hurt her, deliberately, methodically, and Nicholas needed to know who. He returned to his desk and tried to focus on the papers spread across its surface. Supply chain documents, accounts that needed reviewing, a dispute between two of his captains that required mediation, the normal business of running an organization that officially didn't exist. But his mind kept returning to the image of Lauren's back, to the way she had frozen when she heard his voice, to the terror in her eyes when she turned around. Not fear of him specifically, but fear of being seen, of being exposed, of being vulnerable. He recognized that fear. He had seen it before in his wife's eyes during the last weeks before the accident that killed her. Fear of the life he led, of the danger that followed him, of what their son might become if he followed in his father's footsteps. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Teresa stood in the doorway, her expression troubled. "You need something?" he asked. "I wanted to talk to you about Lauren." Nicholas straightened. "What about her?" Teresa closed the door and moved further into the room. She had worked for the Pellegrini family for 30 years and was one of the few people who could speak freely to him. "I saw your face at dinner," she said. "Whatever happened earlier, whatever you saw, please don't fire her. That girl needs this job. I'm not firing her." "Good, because she's the best thing that's happened to Matteo since his mother died." He actually smiles now. He laughs. He talks about his day at dinner instead of sitting silent. Please don't take that away from him. Nicholas's expression softened slightly. "I told you I'm not firing her. I just need some information." Teresa studied him with knowing eyes. "Be careful, Nicholas. That girl has been hurt before. I can see it in the way she moves, the way she flinches at loud noises, the way she never quite relaxes. Whatever you're digging into, whatever you find, remember she's a person, not a problem to solve. I know that. Do you? Because sometimes I think you forget that not everyone in your life is a soldier or an enemy. Some people are just trying to survive." She left before he could respond, closing the door gently behind her. Nicholas leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Teresa was right, of course. She usually was. But that didn't change the fact that someone in his household, someone who spent hours alone with his son, had a past violent enough to leave scars that extensive. He needed answers, for Matteo's safety if nothing else. That's what he told himself anyway. It had nothing to do with the protective rage that had flooded through him when he saw those scars, or the way his hands had clenched into fists imagining someone hurting her, or the strange pull he felt toward this quiet woman who had somehow become essential to his son's happiness in just 2 months. Nothing to do with any of that. The night stretched on. Nicholas worked until the numbers on the page started blurring together, until even the strongest coffee couldn't keep him focused. Finally, around 2 a.m, he admitted defeat and headed upstairs. He paused outside Matteo's room, as he did every night, and carefully opened the door. His son slept peacefully, one arm thrown over his favorite stuffed bear, his breathing deep and even. Nicholas watched him for a moment, feeling the familiar ache in his chest. Matteo looked so much like his mother when he slept. The same peaceful expression, the same delicate features. "I'm keeping him safe," Nicholas whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of his wife, to himself. "I promise." He closed the door and continued to his own bedroom. But sleep didn't come easily. He kept seeing Lauren's scars, kept wondering what kind of monster would do that to someone, kept imagining scenarios that made his blood boil. His phone buzzed just after 6 a.m. A message from Ryan. "Got preliminary information. You're going to want to see this. Coming by at 8. Nicholas got up and showered, dressing in his usual work attire, dark slacks and a crisp white shirt. By the time he made it downstairs, Lauren had already arrived. He could hear her in the kitchen with Teresa, their voices soft, discussing the menu for Matteo's lunch. He stayed in his office, pretending to work, until Ryan arrived promptly at 8 with a manila folder. "That was fast," Nicholas said. "You said urgent. I pulled some strings." Ryan set the folder on the desk. "It's not everything yet, but it's a start. Medical records are harder to get, but I have a source working on it." Nicholas opened the folder and started reading. Lauren Mitchell, 27 years old, born in Portland, Oregon. Moved to Boston 18 months ago. Before that, she had lived in Philadelphia for 2 years. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants, no red flags on paper. But there was a note at the bottom of the first page that made Nicholas's jaw tighten. Subject filed restraining order in Philadelphia County Court 20 months ago. Order granted, but complainant moved before hearing. Restraining order lapsed. Who was it against? Nicholas asked, though he already knew the answer would be important. Still digging on that. Court records are sealed, but I have someone working on it. Should have a name by end of day. Nicholas nodded slowly. A restraining order. Someone had hurt her badly enough that she went to the police, got legal protection, then ran anyway. Ran all the way across the country and built a new life in a city where no one knew her. Keep digging, he said. I want to know everything. And Ryan, be discreet. I don't want her knowing we're looking into this. Understood. After Ryan left, Nicholas sat with the folder open in front of him, staring at Lauren's information. 27 years old. So young, really. Young enough to still believe in fresh starts and new beginnings. Young enough to think that running far enough could make the past disappear. He knew better. The past never disappeared. It just waited, patient and hungry, for the right moment to catch up. Nicholas closed the folder and looked out the window toward the backyard where Lauren was already outside with Mateo, helping him water the flowers that lined the garden path. The boy's laughter drifted through the glass, bright and pure. Whatever had happened to Lauren Mitchell, whoever had hurt her, Nicholas was going to find out, and then he was going to make sure it never happened again. That much, he could promise. Ryan Cooper arrived at the Pellegrini mansion at 7:30 in the morning, earlier than Nicholas had expected. The investigator looked like he hadn't slept, his shirt wrinkled and his eyes shadowed, but his expression was sharp and focused. You look terrible, Nicholas said, gesturing for him to sit. You asked for comprehensive by morning. Comprehensive doesn't sleep. Ryan dropped a thick folder onto the desk. Everything you wanted is in there. Medical records, police reports, witness statements. It's not pretty. Nicholas opened the folder and began reading. The first document was a hospital intake form from Philadelphia General, dated 21 months ago. Patient, Lauren Michelle Mitchell. Age, 25. Admitted for treatment of second-degree burns to left shoulder and upper back. The attending physician's notes were clinical but damning. Burns consistent with contact with heated metal object. Patient claims accident with clothing iron. Injury pattern inconsistent with accidental contact. Social services consulted. Nicholas's jaw tightened as he flipped to the next page. Police report, filed 3 days after the hospital visit. Lauren had finally told the truth to a detective who specialized in domestic violence cases. The man's name was Tyler Grant, her boyfriend of 14 months. The burns were punishment for talking to a male cashier at the grocery store. There's more, Ryan said quietly. Keep reading. The restraining order application was next. Lauren's handwriting was shaky, but determined as she described a pattern of escalating violence over 8 months. Verbal abuse that turned to pushing, then slapping, then worse. Tyler isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, controlled her money. The burns were the breaking point, the moment she finally understood he might actually kill her. The restraining order was granted. Tyler Grant was served at his apartment. According to the follow-up notes, he didn't contest it, didn't even show up to the hearing. 2 weeks later, Lauren packed everything she owned into her car and drove away from Philadelphia, leaving no forwarding address. Where did she go first? Nicholas asked. Hartford, Connecticut. Worked as a waitress for 6 months under the table, probably trying to stay off the grid. Then she moved to Boston, got legitimate employment through a staffing agency. That's how she ended up with your family. Nicholas studied the photograph paperclip to Tyler Grant's information sheet. White male, early 30s, brown hair, average height and build, the kind of man who could disappear into any crowd, unremarkable in every way, except for the coldness in his pale blue eyes. Current location? Atlantic City. He works security at the Sapphire Pearl Casino, which is owned by a shell company that traces back to the Volkov family. Nicholas looked up sharply. The Russians? Yeah. Could be coincidence. Guy needed a job, they were hiring. But the timing is interesting. He got hired there about 4 months ago, right around when your organization had that shipping dispute with Volkov's people. You think they know she works for me? Ryan shrugged. I think we should assume they might. The Volkovs are thorough. If they're looking for leverage against you, They'd investigate everyone in your household. Your son's nanny would be on that list. Nicholas closed the folder and leaned back in his chair, his mind already working through scenarios and contingencies. If the Russians knew about Lauren, if they knew about her connection to Tyler Grant, they could use that relationship as a weapon. Bring Tyler back into her life, traumatize her, destabilize Nicholas's household, create chaos. I want surveillance on him, Nicholas said. 24 hours, rotating teams. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to, every phone call he makes. Done. What about her? Does she know you're looking into this? Not yet, but she's about to. Ryan stood. Be careful how you handle this, boss. She's not one of your soldiers. You can't just order her to accept your protection. Watch me. After Ryan left, Nicholas sat with the folder open, staring at the hospital photograph of Lauren's burns. The image was clinical, taken for medical documentation, but it showed the full extent of the damage. The skin on her shoulder was mottled and twisted, the kind of scar that would never fully fade. Rage burned through him, cold and controlled. He had built his entire life on power and control, on making sure the people under his protection stayed safe. The fact that Lauren had been hurt like this, that she had suffered while he existed in the same world, felt like a personal failure, even though he hadn't known her then. He picked up his phone and made a call to his head of security. Marcus, I want the perimeter system upgraded. More cameras, motion sensors, the works. And I want 2 additional guards on rotation, specifically focused on monitoring anyone approaching the property who doesn't have clearance. Something happen? Just do it. I want it operational by end of week. The next call was more delicate. Nicholas dialed a number he rarely used, one that connected him to a contact in Atlantic City who owed him several favors. I need someone watched, Nicholas said when the man answered. Tyler Grant, works security at the Sapphire Pearl. I want to know his schedule, his habits, his connections, and I need to know if anyone from the Volkov organization is paying special attention to him. This related to the casino situation? Different matter. Personal. The man on the other end understood immediately that no further questions would be welcome. I'll have someone on him by tonight. Nicholas ended the call and checked his watch. 9:15. Mateo would be at his swimming lesson until 10:30, which meant Lauren would be alone in the house, except for Teresa. This was as private as the conversation was going to get. He found her in the kitchen, preparing ingredients for Mateo's lunch. She wore another long-sleeved shirt despite the heat, pale blue this time, with the sleeves buttoned at her wrists. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she hummed softly while she worked, some melody he didn't recognize. Miss Mitchell, I need to speak with you privately. Lauren jumped, nearly dropping the knife she was using to slice vegetables. She turned, her blue eyes wide. Mr. Pellegrini, I didn't hear you come in. My office, please. Her face paled slightly, but she nodded and followed him through the house. Nicholas could feel her tension radiating like heat as they walked, the way her steps slowed as they approached his office door. He gestured for her to sit in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. She perched on the edge, her posture rigid, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Nicholas didn't sit. Instead, he placed the folder on the desk between them and watched her reaction. Her eyes dropped to it, and he saw the moment she recognized what it might contain. The color drained from her face completely. I had you investigated, he said, his voice matter of fact. After what I saw yesterday, I needed to know what happened to you. Lauren's breathing became shallow. You had no right. I have every right. You work in my home. You spend time alone with my son. I need to know who you are. I'm exactly who I said I was. I gave you references, background checks, everything you asked for when you hired me. You gave me a sanitized version. You didn't mention Tyler Grant. The name hit her like a physical blow. She flinched, her hands gripping each other so tightly her knuckles went white. How did you... Hospital records, police reports, restraining order application. It's all in here. He tapped the folder. 2nd-degree burns, multiple incidents of physical assault, 8 months of systematic abuse before you finally got out. Lauren stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You had no right to dig into that. That part of my life is over. I left it behind. Did you? Because Tyler Grant is currently employed by an organization that has active conflicts with my family. That's not a coincidence I can ignore. She stared at him, confusion mixing with the fear in her eyes. What are you talking about? Tyler works at some casino. He doesn't have anything to do with your business. The casino is owned by the Russian mob. The same people who have been trying to move into my territory for the past year. The same people who killed my wife. The words hung in the air between them. Lauren sank back into the chair, her legs apparently unable to hold her weight anymore. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know about any of that. I just needed a job, and your agency sent me here. And I thought I'd finally found somewhere safe. Nicholas studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. He had spent years reading people, learning to spot lies and manipulation. Lauren showed neither. She was terrified. Yes, but it was the terror of a victim facing her past, not the calculated fear of someone caught in a scheme. I believe you, he said finally, but that doesn't change our situation. If the Russians know you work for me, if they know about your connection to Tyler, they could use that against both of us. Then I'll leave. I'll quit. Move to another city. Start over again. I've done it before. No. The word came out harder than he intended. Lauren looked up at him, startled. No, he repeated softer this time. You're not running again. You're under my protection now. I don't need protection. I need to disappear before Tyler finds me, before your enemies use me to hurt you and Mateo. Nicholas moved around the desk and crouched in front of her chair, bringing himself to her eye level. Listen to me carefully, Lauren. The moment you started working in this house, you became part of my world whether you knew it or not. People watch everyone associated with me. They look for weaknesses, for leverage, for ways to hurt what I care about. Running won't change that. It will just leave you vulnerable. And staying makes me what? A prisoner in your house? It makes you someone I can keep safe. I'm doubling security on the property. You'll have protection when you leave. We'll monitor Tyler's movements, make sure he doesn't come anywhere near Boston. Lauren's eyes filled with tears, though she blinked them back furiously. Why? Why would you do this for me? I'm just your employee. You barely know me. The question was valid, and Nicholas didn't have an answer that made sense even to himself. The logical response was that protecting her protected Mateo, that allowing a threat to exist anywhere in his household was unacceptable. But the truth was more complicated, tied up in the way his chest had ached when he saw her scars, the protective fury that had consumed him reading about what she'd endured. You're not just an employee, he said carefully. You've become important to my son. He trusts you, cares about you. That makes you family, in the ways that matter. Family, she repeated, testing the word like it might burn her tongue. My wife died 3 years ago. Car accident on her way home from visiting her sister. Except it wasn't an accident. The brakes were cut, the steering column tampered with. It was a message from a rival family, a punishment for a decision I made that cost them money. Lauren's expression shifted from fear to sympathy. I'm so sorry. I tell you this so you understand why I'm obsessive about security, why I need to know about every potential threat. I couldn't protect her. I won't fail again. Silence settled between them, heavy with shared pain. Lauren wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so vulnerable it made Nicholas's heart clench. I had therapy, she said suddenly, after I left Philadelphia. 6 months of intensive sessions with a trauma specialist. She taught me coping mechanisms, ways to recognize danger signs, how to not let fear control my entire life. I thought I was doing well. I thought I'd moved past it. You have moved past it. You're here. You're working. You're living your life. That took incredible strength. Then why do I feel like I'm right back where I started? Afraid, powerless, waiting for everything to fall apart? Because trauma doesn't disappear just because we want it to. But this time you're not alone. This time you have resources, protection, people who won't let him hurt you again. Lauren met his eyes, searching for something. Trust, maybe, or certainty in an uncertain world. What if I can't do this? What if having me here puts Mateo in danger? Then I'll handle it. That's what I do, Lauren. I handle threats. I eliminate problems. You focus on taking care of my son and letting yourself heal. Let me worry about everything else. The office door burst open, making them both jump. Mateo ran in, his hair still damp from swimming, his face bright with excitement. Dad! Lauren! I swam the whole length without my floaties. Coach said I am getting so strong. Nicholas stood quickly, putting distance between himself and Lauren. That's excellent news, little man. I'm very proud of you. Mateo noticed Lauren's face, and his expression shifted to concern. Why are you sad? Did I do something wrong? No, baby, of course not. Lauren forced a smile, though her eyes were still red. I'm just very proud of you, too. Swimming a whole length is a big deal. Then why do you look like you have been crying? Adult stuff. Nicholas intervened smoothly. Nothing for you to worry about. Why don't you go get changed? And then you can tell Lauren all about your swimming lesson while you eat lunch. Mateo hesitated, looking between them with the uncanny perception children sometimes have. But the promise of lunch and an audience for his accomplishments won out. Okay, but Lauren, you have to promise to watch me swim next time so you can see how good I am. I promise. After Mateo left, Lauren stood. I should go help Teresa with lunch. Wait. Nicholas moved to his desk and picked up his phone. I need to make 2 calls. I want you to hear them. The first call was to Marcus, his security chief. I want the new protocols active immediately. I don't care what it costs or how long the contractors have to work. Get it done. He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Ryan, about Tyler Grant. I want him under surveillance starting tonight. Full coverage, multiple teams. I want to know if he so much as thinks about leaving Atlantic City. Ryan's voice came through the speaker, questioning. Do you want us to eliminate the problem? It would be cleaner. Nicholas glanced at Lauren, who was watching him with wide eyes. No. Not yet. I want to understand his connections first. If he's working with the Volkovs, killing him might trigger a larger response. We monitor, we gather information, and we stay ahead of any move he might make. Understood. What if he does try to leave Atlantic City? Then you follow him. And if he comes within 50 miles of Boston, you notify me immediately. Clear? Crystal. Nicholas ended the call and turned back to Lauren. Tyler Grant is being watched. He won't get near you without me knowing about it. Lauren hugged herself, her arms wrapped tightly around her middle. This is insane. This whole situation is insane. Welcome to my world. It's not pretty, but it's thorough. I don't know if I can live like this. Always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for something terrible to happen. You're already living like that, Nicholas said gently. You've been living like that since the day you ran from Philadelphia. At least now you have someone watching your back. She studied him for a long moment, and he could see the war playing out behind her eyes. The desire to trust battling against years of learned caution. The need for safety, fighting with the fear of owing someone too much. Okay, she said finally. Okay, but I have conditions. Name them. I don't want Mateo to know about any of this. He's 5 years old. He doesn't need to be scared or confused about why there are suddenly more security cameras everywhere. Agreed. He'll think we're just upgrading the system. And I want to know what's happening. If Tyler moves, if something changes, I want to be informed. No keeping me in the dark for my own good. Nicholas hesitated. His instinct was to protect her from harsh realities, to handle threats without burdening her with details. But the look in her eyes told him she needed this. Needed some measure of control in a situation where she had very little. You'll be kept informed, he promised, within reason. Some things you're better off not knowing, but major developments, changes to your safety protocol, anything directly relevant to you, I'll tell you. Thank you. They stood in the office, the folder still sitting on the desk between them. A physical representation of all the pain she'd survived and the danger that still lurked in her past. Nicholas wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, that he'd keep her absolutely safe, that Tyler Grant would never touch her again. But he'd learned years ago that some promises were too big to make. The world was unpredictable, and violence had a way of finding cracks in even the best defenses. All he could do was be prepared, be vigilant, and be absolutely ruthless with anyone who threatened what was his. And somehow, in the past 24 hours, Lauren Mitchell had become his to protect. 5 days of uneasy peace had passed since Nicholas confronted Lauren about her past. The mansion had transformed subtly, but noticeably. New cameras appeared on the exterior walls, sleek and modern. 2 additional security guards joined the rotation. Their presence explained a way to Mateo as summer helpers for the grounds. Lauren adjusted to the changes with quiet acceptance, though she sometimes caught herself counting the cameras when she thought no one was watching. Tuesday morning started normally. Lauren arrived at 7:30 as usual, let herself in through the side entrance, and found Teresa already preparing breakfast. The housekeeper greeted her with a warm smile and a cup of coffee, just the way Lauren liked it. "Mateo is still sleeping," Teresa said. "Mr. Pellegrini left early for a meeting downtown. Said he would be back by lunch." Lauren nodded and took the coffee gratefully. She had started sleeping better the past few nights, the constant low-level anxiety that had defined her existence for nearly 2 years, finally beginning to ease. Knowing that Tyler was being watched, that people were actively monitoring his movements, created a strange sense of security she hadn't felt in a long time. She was halfway through her coffee when Marcus, the head of security, appeared in the kitchen doorway. His expression was carefully neutral, but Lauren had learned to read the tension in his shoulders. "Miss Mitchell, I need to speak with you. It's important." Teresa's eyes darted between them. "I will go wake Mateo." Once they were alone, Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Lauren a message. "Our surveillance team in Atlantic City reported this an hour ago. Tyler Grant requested time off from his job, citing a family emergency. He left his apartment at 4 this morning. We lost track of him somewhere outside Philadelphia." The coffee turned to acid in Lauren's stomach. "Lost track? How do you lose track of someone?" He knows surveillance techniques. Switched cars, took back roads, disabled his phone. Professional-level evasion. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I've already notified Mr. Pellegrini. He's on his way back now." Lauren set down her mug before her shaking hands could drop it. "He's coming here. Tyler's coming to Boston. We don't know that for certain." "I know it. He found me somehow. He knows where I am." Marcus didn't argue, which was worse than if he had tried to reassure her with empty platitudes. "The property is secure. We have additional personnel arriving within the hour. You're safe here." Safe. The word felt like a lie. Lauren had thought she was safe in Philadelphia, too. Right up until the moment Tyler's hand closed around her throat, the iron heating on the counter behind him. His voice soft and reasonable as he explained why she deserved to be punished. She excused herself and went to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman on the edge of panic, blue eyes too wide, face too pale. She splashed cold water on her face and forced herself to breathe deeply, using the techniques her therapist had taught her. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 7. Out through the mouth for 8. The pattern calmed her racing heart enough that she could think clearly. She had 2 choices: run again, disappear into another city with another identity, or trust that Nicholas's protection was real and substantial. Running felt familiar, comfortable in its own terrible way, but it also felt like giving up, like admitting that Tyler would control her life forever, chasing her from place to place until she had nowhere left to hide. A knock on the bathroom door startled her. "Lauren?" Mateo's voice was sleep-rough and concerned. "Are you okay in there?" She unlocked the door and found the boy in his pajamas, his dark hair sticking up in several directions, his expression worried. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just needed a minute. Teresa said something is happening." "Are we in danger?" The question was too perceptive for a 5-year-old, but Mateo had grown up in a world where danger was always a possibility, where his father's business meant constant vigilance. Lauren crouched down to his level. "Everything is okay. Your dad is being extra careful about security, that's all. Because of bad people who don't like him? Something like that." Mateo hugged her suddenly, his small arms tight around her neck. "I don't want the bad people to hurt you." Lauren's throat closed with emotion. "They won't, baby. I promise." Nicholas arrived 20 minutes later, his face set in hard lines. He went directly to his office with Marcus, and Lauren could hear the low murmur of urgent conversation through the closed door. She kept Mateo occupied with breakfast and coloring, trying to project a calm she absolutely did not feel. At 9:30, a delivery van pulled up to the front gate. Through the window, Lauren watched Marcus go out to meet it. He spoke briefly with the driver, then accepted a large bouquet of flowers. Her blood turned to ice. Marcus brought the flowers to the door, but didn't let them inside. Instead, he called for Nicholas, who emerged from his office with an expression that could cut glass. "Who are these for?" Nicholas asked. "Lauren Mitchell," Marcus replied. No return address on the card. Nicholas took the small envelope attached to the bouquet and opened it. Whatever he read, there made his entire body go rigid. He looked up, his dark eyes finding Lauren where she stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. "Get Mateo upstairs, now." The command in his voice snapped her into motion. She took Mateo's hand and led him quickly to his bedroom, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "Why is Dad angry?" Mateo asked. "He's not angry, just busy with work stuff. Why don't you play with your cars for a bit?" She left him building an elaborate racetrack and hurried back downstairs. Nicholas was in his office, the bouquet sitting on his desk like a bomb. The flowers were roses, red and expensive, exactly the kind Tyler used to bring after he hurt her. As if beauty could erase violence. "What did the card say?" Lauren asked from the doorway. Nicholas looked at her for a long moment before handing it over. The handwriting was achingly familiar, Tyler's neat block letters spelling out 2 words and a nickname that made her skin crawl. "Miss you, Princess. Princess." He always called her that, said she was his perfect princess who needed to be kept safe from the world, which really meant kept isolated and controlled and broken down until she believed she deserved the pain. "He's here," Lauren whispered. "He's in Boston. We're checking the security footage now." He or someone working for him got close enough to make this delivery. Nicholas stood and moved around the desk. "Lauren, I need to make a decision, and I need you to trust me." "What kind of decision?" "I have a property in Cape Cod, a beach house that's extremely secure and off the grid. Most people don't know I own it. I want to move you and Mateo there today, right now, while my team locates Tyler." Lauren's first instinct was to argue, to insist that running solved nothing. But looking at Nicholas's face, at the cold determination there, she understood this wasn't running. This was tactical retreat, moving valuable pieces off the board while the real game played out. For how long? However long it takes. Days, maybe a week. Until we know exactly where Tyler is and what his intentions are. And if his intentions are to find me, moving to Cape Cod just delays the inevitable. Nothing is inevitable except what I allow to happen. Nicholas's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "I have resources Tyler Grant can't begin to imagine. The only reason he's still breathing is because I don't yet know if killing him will trigger a larger response from the Volkovs. But that calculation can change very quickly." The casual mention of killing should have horrified her. Instead, Lauren felt a dark satisfaction curl in her chest. Tyler had terrorized her for months, had burned and beaten and broken her while she had no one to defend her. No power to fight back. The idea that someone might actually make him pay for that felt like justice, even if it came from a morally questionable source. "Okay," she said. "How soon do we leave?" 30 minutes. Pack light. We have everything you'll need at the house. And Lauren, this stays between us. Mateo doesn't need to know why we're really going." They left exactly 32 minutes later in an SUV with tinted windows, Marcus driving and another guard in the passenger seat. Lauren sat in the back with Mateo, who peppered her with excited questions about the beach house. "Can we swim in the ocean? Maybe, if it's warm enough. Will there be crabs? I want to catch crabs." "I don't know, baby. We'll see what we find." Nicholas followed in a separate car with 2 more guards. The convoy moved through Boston traffic with practiced efficiency, taking a route that changed twice based on instructions Nicholas received via phone. They reached Cape Cod in just under 2 hours. The beach house sat at the end of a private road, surrounded by tall hedges and natural dunes. It was smaller than the Boston mansion, but no less impressive. All weathered wood and floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean. Mateo was enchanted immediately. "Can I go to the beach? Please? I want to see the water." Lauren looked to Nicholas, who had just finished a tense phone call. He nodded. "Stay where we can see you from the deck. Don't go in the water without an adult." The boy ran off, and Lauren followed at a slower pace, suddenly exhausted despite the early hour. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, gray-blue under a cloudy sky. Mateo searched for shells along the waterline, his laughter carrying on the salt-scented breeze. Nicholas stood beside her on the deck, his phone still in his hand. "My team picked up Tyler on security camera footage from this morning. He was 3 blocks from the mansion, sitting in a parked car, watching the gate." Lauren's breath caught. 3 blocks. That close. The license plate traces to a rental company. He's using a fake ID, paying cash. Professional-grade false documentation, which suggests he had help acquiring it. "The Russians," Lauren said quietly. "Possibly. Or he's just more connected than we thought." Nicholas turned to face her. "Either way, he's in Boston. He knows where you were, and he's actively trying to locate you. Moving here was the right call." Lauren wrapped her arms around herself, watching Mateo play. "How did this become my life? 6 months ago, my biggest worry was whether I'd saved money for rent. Now I'm hiding from my abusive ex-boyfriend, while a Mafia boss protects me from Russian mobsters. Life has a way of getting complicated." That's an understatement. They stood in silence for a while, the sound of waves filling the space between words. Finally, Nicholas spoke again. "I need to go back to Boston tonight. There are things I need to handle personally." Panic flared in Lauren's chest. "You're leaving us here alone? Marcus and 3 other guards will stay with you. The house has a security system that would make a bank jealous. You'll be safer here than anywhere else I can think of." "That's not reassuring. It's the truth." "Lauren, I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing." She wanted to argue, to demand he stay, to tell him that she felt safe only when he was close. But those feelings were dangerous, the kind that led to dependence and complications she couldn't afford. "Fine. But you call me if anything changes." "I will." Nicholas left after dinner, which Lauren and Mateo ate on the deck while the sun set over the water. The boy fell asleep early, exhausted from playing on the beach. Lauren carried him to the bedroom Nicholas had indicated, tucked him in, and stood watching him sleep for a long moment. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. The idea that her presence in his life might endanger him made her stomach twist with guilt. Maybe she should leave after all. Disappear in the middle of the night before Tyler's hunt for her brought violence to Nicholas's door. She was still wrestling with that thought when she heard a car pull up outside. Marcus went to check, then returned with Nicholas, who looked tired and tense. "I thought you went back to Boston," Lauren said. "I did. Meeting finished early. Thought I'd stay here tonight instead of driving back in the dark." It was a lie. Lauren could see it in the way he didn't quite meet her eyes. He had come back because he was worried, because leaving them felt wrong despite the security measures. The realization warmed something in her chest that had been cold for a very long time. "Thank you," she said quietly. Nicholas nodded and disappeared into what must have been his bedroom. Lauren tried to settle on the couch with a book, but her mind wouldn't focus. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow through the windows looked like Tyler's silhouette. Around midnight, exhaustion finally started to win over anxiety. Her eyes grew heavy, the book slipping from her hands. She drifted into uneasy sleep, and immediately the nightmares began. Tyler's face, close to hers, his breath hot and sour. The iron in his hand, glowing red. Her own voice screaming, begging, promising anything if he would just stop. The smell of her skin burning. The sound like meat on a grill. His voice, soft and loving. "You made me do this, princess. You know I hate hurting you." Lauren woke up screaming, her body jerking upright on the couch. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, and she fought instinctively. Panic overwhelming reason. "Lauren, stop. You're safe. It's me." Nicholas's voice cut through the terror. She stopped struggling and focused on his face, on the concern in his dark eyes. He was kneeling in front of the couch, still wearing the dress pants and white shirt from earlier, now rumpled from sleep. "Sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. Don't apologize. Are you okay?" She wasn't, not even close. But Lauren nodded anyway. "Just a nightmare. Nicholas sat on the coffee table facing her, close but not crowding. You were screaming his name. Tyler's name. I dream about that night sometimes. The night with the iron. I can still smell it, still feel it. The dreams make it so vivid, like it's happening all over again. Tell me what happened. All of it. Lauren pulled her knees to her chest, making herself smaller. We'd been together 14 months. He seemed perfect at first, attentive and protective. Then slowly things changed. He didn't like my friends. Didn't want me going out without him. Got angry when other men talked to me. I told myself it was just because he loved me so much. Classic pattern, Nicholas said quietly. The first time he hit me, he cried and apologized for days. Bought me flowers, promised it would never happen again. I believed him. The second time, the apologies were shorter. By the 5th or 6th time, he stopped apologizing at all. Said I provoked him. That if I just behaved better, he wouldn't have to get angry. Nicholas's hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained calm. What happened the night of the burns? I went to the grocery store alone. He was at work, and we needed milk. The cashier was friendly, made small talk while he scanned my items. Asked how my day was. Normal stuff. Tyler was waiting when I got home. He'd put cameras in the apartment without telling me. Had been watching me through his phone. He saw me smile at the cashier. Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. He heated the iron while he explained how disappointed he was. Said he'd given me everything, protected me from the world, and I repaid him by flirting with strangers. I tried to tell him I wasn't flirting, that it was just basic politeness. He said I was lying. Nicholas moved to sit beside her on the couch, close enough that she could feel his warmth. You don't have to finish if you don't want to. I need to. I need you to understand what he is. Lauren took a shaky breath. He held me down and pressed the iron to my shoulder. Counted to 10 while I screamed. Then he turned it off, kissed my forehead, and told me he loved me. Said everything could go back to normal if I just learned to behave. But you didn't go back to normal. I went to the hospital the next day while he was at work. Told them it was an accident at first. But the doctor didn't believe me. She kept asking gentle questions until I broke down and told the truth. She called the police, called social services. They helped me file the restraining order, gave me resources for shelters and therapy. Tyler never contested it, never fought back legally. I thought that meant he'd moved on, that he was letting me go. He was just biding his time, Nicholas said. Men like that don't let go. They wait and plan and find their moment. Lauren turned to look at him. Really look at him. How do you know so much about this? My mother. Before she met my father, she was with someone like Tyler. He put her in the hospital twice before she finally left. My father helped her disappear, gave her protection, eventually married her. She told me the stories when I was old enough to understand. Made me promise I'd never raise my hand to a woman. Never use my strength to intimidate or control. And have you kept that promise? Yes. I've done terrible things, Lauren. I've hurt people, made choices that would disgust you if you knew the details. But I've never struck a woman, never used fear to keep someone bound to me. That's a line I won't cross. They sat in silence for a moment, the ocean whispering beyond the windows. Finally, Lauren said, I thought I was stronger now, thought the therapy worked, that I'd processed the trauma and moved on. But the nightmares keep coming back. Healing isn't linear. Some wounds stay with us forever. We just learn to carry them better. Nicholas reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused, strong in a way that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. I won't let him touch you again, Nicholas said, his voice low and intense. I don't care what I have to do, what lines I have to cross, what prices I have to pay. Tyler Grant will never hurt you again. You have my word. Lauren felt tears slip down her cheeks. Why? Why do you care so much? I'm nobody, just your son's nanny. You're not nobody. Nicholas reached up with his free hand and gently wiped away her tears. You're the woman who makes my son laugh again, who brings light into a house that's been dark for 3 years, who survived something that would have broken most people and came out the other side still kind, still gentle, still capable of love. The air between them shifted, charged with something dangerous and electric. Lauren's breath caught as Nicholas leaned closer, his eyes dropping to her mouth. She should pull away, should remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She worked for him. He was dangerous. She was broken. This could only end badly. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in too, closing the distance until their lips were inches apart. "Tell me to stop," Nicholas whispered. "I can't." He kissed her softly, carefully, like she might shatter under too much pressure. Lauren's eyes closed, and for the first time in years, a man's touch didn't make her flinch. Nicholas's hand cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with infinite gentleness. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lauren opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. "This is a bad idea," she said. "Probably. You're my boss. I work for you." "I know. And you're a criminal. You do things that are illegal and dangerous. Also true. We should stop this before it gets complicated." Nicholas smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Too late for that. Lauren knew he was right. Whatever was happening between them had already moved past simple attraction into something deeper, more dangerous. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt hopeful for the first time since Tyler had burned her skin and tried to burn her spirit too. "I have too much baggage," she said quietly. "Too many scars. Too much trauma. You deserve someone whole." Nicholas took both her hands, holding them gently. "Lauren, everyone has scars. Some are just more visible than others. Yours don't make you broken. They make you a survivor. And if I'm being honest, I stopped deserving good things a long time ago, but maybe we can be imperfect together." She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this could work despite all the obstacles. But trust was hard when it had been beaten out of you by someone who claimed to love you. "I need time," she said, "to figure out what I'm feeling, what I want. With Tyler still out there, with everything so uncertain, I can't think clearly. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." They sat together on the couch as dawn began to lighten the sky outside. Lauren's head gradually drooped onto Nicholas's shoulder, exhaustion finally catching up with her. This time, when she slept, there were no nightmares. Just the steady rhythm of Nicholas's breathing and the distant sound of waves, carrying her safely toward morning. The investigation deepened on the 6th day at Cape Cod. Nicholas received an encrypted message just after breakfast, his expression darkening as he read. He excused himself to the deck where Marcus was stationed, and Lauren watched through the window as the two men spoke in low, urgent tones. When Nicholas returned, his jaw was set in a way that meant bad news. He waited until Mateo was occupied building a sand castle outside before speaking. "We found something," he said quietly. "Tyler's apartment in Atlantic City was searched by one of my contacts. There were photographs, dozens of them. You with Mateo at the park, getting coffee, walking to your car, all taken in the weeks before he disappeared from our surveillance." Lauren's stomach dropped. He was watching us that whole time. Not just watching. Planning. But here's the concerning part. The photographs were professional quality, taken with expensive equipment. Tyler doesn't have that kind of money or skill. Someone provided the resources. The Russians. Nicholas nodded. "My investigator pulled Tyler's employment records. He was hired at the Sapphire Pearl 4 months ago as basic security. Last month, he was promoted to personal protection detail for high-value clients. The promotion came 3 days after he mentioned during a background interview that he had a personal connection to someone in my organization. He told them about me. He told them he knew someone close to the Pellegrini family. That's all it would take. The Volkovs are systematic. They gather information on everyone connected to their rivals, looking for weak points, leverage, ways to cause maximum damage with minimum risk." Lauren moved to the window, watching Mateo carefully stack wet sand. "So Tyler found out where I was working, told the Russians, and they helped him get close. That's the theory. Whether he knows he's being used or thinks he's just getting support to find his ex-girlfriend, we're not sure yet. Either way, you're caught in the middle of something bigger than a domestic dispute." The words settled over her like a heavy blanket. She'd spent 18 months running from one man, only to discover that her escape had entangled her in organized crime politics she barely understood. "What happens now?" she asked. Nicholas moved beside her at the window. "I'm meeting with my captains tonight. We need to discuss options." "What kind of options?" "The permanent kind. But there are complications. If we move against Tyler and the Volkovs find out, it could trigger a war. We're in a delicate balance right now. Territories negotiated, treaties holding. Killing one of their people, even someone as low-level as Tyler, might be the excuse they need to break those agreements." Lauren heard what he wasn't saying. "So I'm not worth starting a war over." Nicholas turned to her, his expression intense. "That's not what I meant. You're worth everything. But I have to consider consequences beyond just us. I have soldiers, families that depend on me, businesses that employ hundreds of people. One wrong move, and all of that could burn. I understand. I do. It's just hard being the problem everyone has to work around. You're not the problem. Tyler and the Russians are the problem. You're the person I'm trying to protect while dealing with them." The distinction felt minimal, but Lauren nodded anyway. Nicholas left that afternoon with Marcus and 2 other guards, driving back to Boston for his meeting. Lauren stayed at the beach house with Mateo and the remaining security team, trying to pretend everything was normal while her world balanced on a knife's edge. Days blurred together. Nicholas returned late each night, his shoulders tense, phone constantly buzzing with updates. Lauren noticed the change in him. The easy smiles for Mateo became more forced. He took calls at odd hours, speaking rapid combinations of English and phrases she didn't understand. Twice she woke in the middle of the night to find him standing on the deck, staring at the dark ocean like it held answers. On the 8th day, Lauren was exploring the house while Mateo napped. The beach house was smaller than the Boston mansion, but still luxurious, with multiple bedrooms and a basement she hadn't yet investigated. She found the stairs behind a door she'd assumed was a closet. The basement was finished, with soft carpet and recessed lighting. Most of it was storage, but one door at the far end was different. Heavy steel with a keypad lock. Lauren knew she should turn around, go back upstairs, respect Nicholas's privacy. Instead, she tried the handle. It was unlocked. The room beyond was climate-controlled and organized with military precision. Gun safes lined one wall, their contents visible through glass doors. Rifles, handguns, weapons she couldn't name. The opposite wall held tactical gear, body armor, equipment that belonged in a war zone rather than a beach house. Lauren stood in the doorway, finally confronting the reality she'd been avoiding. Nicholas wasn't just a businessman with questionable connections. He was a soldier in a war most people didn't know existed, fighting battles in shadows and back rooms, making choices between bad options and worse ones. She should have been horrified, should have grabbed Mateo and run. Instead, she felt a strange sense of acceptance wash over her. This dangerous man with his arsenal and his soldiers was the same person who read bedtime stories to his son, who had held her through nightmares, who was risking political stability to keep her safe from Tyler. "Find something interesting?" Lauren spun around. Nicholas stood on the basement stairs, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry." The door was unlocked and I was curious. He descended the rest of the stairs and moved past her into the weapons room. "This is what I am, Lauren. What I do. Men come to me with problems that can't be solved through legal channels. Disputes over territory, debts that won't be paid, threats that need to be neutralized. Sometimes those problems require conversations. Sometimes they require this." He gestured to the weapons. "I know what you are," Lauren said quietly. "I've known since the beginning. I just hadn't seen the evidence so clearly before. Does it change how you feel? Knowing that these hands have used these weapons, that I've made decisions that resulted in people dying?" Lauren looked at him, really looked at him. The strong jawline and dark eyes, the power in his shoulders, the calluses on his hands from more than just desk work. This was the whole truth of Nicholas Pellegrini, the beautiful and the brutal. "No," she said. "It doesn't change anything. You're protecting your family, your people. Tyler protected nothing but his own ego. There's a difference." Something in Nicholas's expression shifted, softened. "Most people don't see it that way. I'm not most people. I'm the woman whose scars you saw and decided to protect instead of ignore. I'm the one you're risking political complications to keep safe. I trust your judgment about what's necessary." Nicholas closed the distance between them. "You shouldn't. Trust me, I mean. I've made terrible choices, hurt people who probably deserved better. I'm not a good man, Lauren. Maybe not by conventional standards, but you're good to Mateo. You're good to me. That's all I can judge you by." They stood close enough that Lauren could feel the heat radiating from his body. The weapons room felt like an appropriate setting for this conversation, surrounded by the tools of Nicholas's trade, while discussing the morality of his choices. "I'm falling for you," Nicholas said, his voice low. "I've been fighting it, telling myself it's just protectiveness, or attraction, or gratitude for what you do for Mateo. But it's more than that. I think about you constantly. I want to know everything about you. I want to keep you safe, not because you're in my household, but because the idea of anything happening to you makes me want to burn the world down." Lauren's breath caught. "Nicholas, I know it's complicated. You work for me. You're dealing with trauma. We're in the middle of a crisis. The timing is terrible. But I need you to know how I feel before I lose the courage to say it." She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "I'm scared, not of you, but of losing you, of letting myself care about someone who lives in constant danger. Tyler already taught me what it's like to lose yourself in someone else. I can't do that again. I'm not asking you to lose yourself. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you, to be partners instead of protector and protected. I know I'm dangerous, that my world is violent and uncertain, but I swear to you, I will never use that danger against you. Never use my power to control or hurt you." Lauren believed him. Against all logic and self-preservation instincts, she believed every word. She pulled his face down to hers and kissed him, pouring 18 months of loneliness and fear and desperate hope into the contact. Nicholas responded immediately, his arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her against him. The kiss deepened, became urgent and searching. Lauren felt herself melting into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressed against the solid wall of his chest. They broke apart, breathing hard. Nicholas rested his forehead against hers. "We should talk about this. Figure out what it means, how it works. Later," Lauren whispered. "Right now I just want this." They kissed again, and Nicholas backed her against the wall of the weapons room, his mouth moving from her lips to her neck. Lauren gasped, her head falling back. Nerve endings she'd thought deadened by trauma suddenly blazing to life. "Dad?" They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. Mateo stood at the top of the basement stairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his expression confused. "Hey, buddy," Nicholas said, his voice remarkably steady. "You're supposed to be napping. I heard voices. What are you doing down there?" "Just showing Lauren where we store some equipment. Come on up, we'll get you a snack." They climbed the stairs, and Lauren's face burned with embarrassment and residual desire. Mateo looked between them with the uncanny perception children sometimes display, like he knew something significant had happened, but couldn't quite identify what. The rest of the afternoon passed in awkward normalcy. Lauren prepared dinner while Nicholas worked on his laptop, both of them hyper-aware of each other's presence. Mateo played quietly, occasionally glancing at them with puzzled expressions. After dinner, when Mateo was supposedly getting ready for his bath, he appeared in the kitchen doorway with a question that made both adults freeze. "Is Lauren going to leave like Mom did?" Nicholas set down his coffee carefully. "What makes you think that?" "You were looking at each other funny, like in movies before someone goes away." "I don't want her to go away." Lauren's heart broke a little. She knelt down to Mateo's level. "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I promise." But Mom promised too, and then she left. Nicholas joined them, sitting on the floor so he was eye level with his son. "Mom didn't want to leave. She got very sick, remember? We talked about this with your therapist." "I know, but sometimes people leave even when they don't want to. What if Lauren has to leave because of the bad people you're always talking about on the phone?" The boy was too perceptive, absorbing more of the adult tension than they'd realized. Nicholas and Lauren exchanged glances, silently negotiating how much truth to share. "Come here, little man," Nicholas said, pulling Mateo onto his lap. I need to tell you something important. Lauren and I like each other. Not just as friends, but in a special way. Like how Mom and I liked each other. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mateo's eyes widened. Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Something like that. But it doesn't mean I love Mom any less, or that Lauren is trying to replace her. Your mother was special and amazing, and she'll always be important to our family. This is just different. The boy processed this information, his small face serious. Then he looked at Lauren. Do you like my dad too? I do, Lauren said softly. Very much. And you won't leave? Not if I can help it. Mateo seemed satisfied with this answer. He climbed off Nicholas's lap and hugged Lauren tightly. Okay. But you have to promise to tell me if something bad is going to happen. I don't like surprises anymore. We promise, Nicholas said. After Mateo finally went to bed, Lauren and Nicholas sat on the deck, watching the moon reflect off the dark ocean. The conversation with Mateo had been necessary but draining, forcing them to articulate feelings they were still figuring out themselves. That went better than expected, Nicholas said. He's a smart kid, resilient. He gets that from his mother. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Lauren took his hand, lacing their fingers together. Tell me about her. Your wife. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. Her name was Isabella. We met in Milan when I was there for business. She was a translator, completely uninvolved in my world, spoke 6 languages, and could charm anyone within 5 minutes of meeting them. She saw through my carefully constructed walls immediately, called me out on my control issues, made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. She sounds wonderful. She was. And she hated what I did for a living. We almost broke up a dozen times because she couldn't reconcile the man she loved with the things I had to do. But she stayed, tried to focus on the good I could do with my position, set up scholarships, funded community programs, pushed me to be better than I thought I could be. How did she die? Car accident on Route 2, coming back from visiting her sister in Cambridge. Except it wasn't an accident. A rival family had lost a major shipment because of a decision I made. They wanted revenge but knew better than to come at me directly, so they went after the person who made me vulnerable. Lauren squeezed his hand. I'm so sorry. The worst part is, I knew it was a possibility. I'd been warned about escalating tensions, about making sure my family was protected. But I got complacent, thought they wouldn't dare. And Isabella paid the price for my arrogance. That's not your fault, isn't it? I brought her into this world. I made her a target just by loving her, and now I'm doing the same thing to you. Lauren turned to face him fully. The difference is, I came into this with my eyes open. I saw the weapons room. I know what you do. I understand the risks. Isabella was innocent. I'm not. I'm already running from violence. Already living in fear. At least with you. I'm not facing it alone. Nicholas pulled her close, his arms strong and warm around her. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other under the stars. 2 damaged people finding unexpected comfort in shared darkness. Later, when they finally went inside, Nicholas walked Lauren to her bedroom door. They stood in the hallway, neither quite ready to separate. This is real, isn't it? Lauren asked. Not just crisis bonding or proximity? It's real. At least for me. For me too, which is terrifying. Terrifying but worth it. Lauren smiled. Yeah, worth it. They kissed goodnight, gentle and sweet, full of promise for whatever came next. As Lauren closed her bedroom door and leaned against it, she realized that for the first time since Tyler burned her, she felt something other than fear about the future. She felt hope. And that, more than anything, was worth protecting. The call came at 3 a.m. on the 15th day. Lauren was already awake, unable to sleep despite the exhaustion that had become her constant companion. She heard Nicholas's phone buzz from his bedroom down the hall, then the immediate sound of his voice, sharp and urgent. She pulled on a robe and found him in the living room, still holding his phone, his face carved from stone in the dim light. What happened? She asked. Nicholas looked at her, and the expression in his eyes made her blood run cold. Tyler took someone. Ryan's sister, Andrea. She was grabbed outside her apartment in Cambridge 2 hours ago. Security footage shows a white van, Massachusetts plates. Ryan just received a call with demands. Lauren's legs threatened to give out. She sank onto the couch. What kind of demands? Your exact location. Tyler wants to know where you are, and he's willing to trade Andrea's life for that information. He gave Ryan 24 hours to decide. The room spun. An innocent woman, someone who had nothing to do with any of this, was in danger because of Lauren's existence. Because Tyler was obsessed with her. Because she'd made the mistake of trusting him years ago. Give him what he wants, Lauren said immediately. Tell him where I am. I'll meet him wherever he says. Just let Andrea go. Absolutely not. Nicholas, she's innocent. She doesn't deserve this. Neither do you. Nicholas moved to sit beside her. His voice controlled, but his hands clenched into fists. Tyler won't just let you go, Lauren. You know that. The moment he has you, he'll disappear, and we'll find your body weeks later, if we find it at all. Lauren forced herself to breathe through the panic. So what do we do? Let Andrea die because saving her is too risky? I didn't say that. Nicholas ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of agitation. I'm saying we need a plan that doesn't involve sacrificing you. What if I'm bait? A controlled operation, your people watching, ready to intervene the moment Andrea is safe. No. Too many variables. Too many ways it could go wrong. Then what's your alternative? Because right now a woman is being held hostage because Tyler wants me. That's on me, Nicholas. I have to fix it. They argued for another 20 minutes, Lauren pushing for the bait plan while Nicholas shot down every version she proposed. Finally, Marcus knocked on the door, his face grim. Ryan's here. He wants to talk. Ryan Cooper looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. His eyes were red-rimmed, his normally steady hands shaking as he accepted the coffee Teresa pressed into them. I know what I'm supposed to say, Ryan started, his voice rough. That we don't negotiate with kidnappers. That giving in to demands sets a dangerous precedent. But that's my baby sister, boss. Andrea's 23 years old, works at a library, never hurt anyone in her life. And she's in danger because of my job, my choices. Nicholas's expression softened slightly. We're going to get her back, Ryan. I promise you that. How? Tyler was clear. He wants Lauren's location by 6 tonight. Or he starts sending pieces of Andrea to prove he's serious. We have 15 hours. Lauren stood abruptly. Then let's use those 15 hours. Tyler wants me, he gets me, but on our terms, in a location we control, with your entire team ready to move. Ryan looked at her with something like hope. You'd do that? Risk yourself for someone you've never met? Andrea is in this situation because Tyler is obsessed with me. Of course I'd do that. Nicholas stood as well, his jaw tight. Everyone out. I need to talk to Lauren alone. Marcus and Ryan filed out, leaving them in tense silence. Nicholas moved close, his hands gripping her shoulders. You don't have to be the hero here, he said quietly. This isn't your fault. It is, though. Tyler came back into my life, found out where I was, and used that information to hurt people close to you. If I'd just stayed in Philadelphia, dealt with him then instead of running, then he probably would have killed you. You did what you needed to survive. Don't second-guess that now. I'm not. But I am choosing to help fix the mess my survival created. Lauren met his eyes steadily. You told me once that you handle threats, that you eliminate problems. Let me be part of the solution instead of just the victim you're protecting. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Finally, he said, If we do this, and that's a massive if, it happens my way. Complete control, no deviations from the plan. What plan? We tell Tyler we'll give him your location, but instead of an address, we give him a meeting spot. Somewhere isolated, where my people can position themselves without being seen. You wear a tracker, a wire, and body armor. Snipers will have you in sight at all times. The moment Andrea is confirmed safe, we extract you. And Tyler? Tyler becomes a problem that gets permanently solved. Lauren should have been horrified by the casual way Nicholas discussed killing someone. Instead, she felt a grim satisfaction. Tyler had terrorized her, burned her, broken her spirit. Then he'd dragged an innocent woman into his obsession. He deserved whatever was coming. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." The next hours were a blur of preparation. Nicholas called in favors, assembled a team, and scouted locations. They settled on an abandoned warehouse in Revere, a coastal suburb with limited access points and clear sightlines. Ryan would make the call to Tyler, setting the meeting for 5 that evening. Before they left Cape Cod, Nicholas pulled Anthony Brunarelli aside. His trusted advisor had arrived an hour earlier, a distinguished man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I need you to stay here with Mateo," Nicholas said. "Take your best people. No one gets near this house." "Consider it done. How much does the boy know?" "Nothing. Teresa will tell him we had business in Boston. Keep him occupied. Keep him safe. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. But if it does, the boy will be protected. You have my word." Lauren found Mateo playing with building blocks in his room, oblivious to the danger swirling around him. She knelt beside him and pulled him into a tight hug. "Hey, sweetheart. Your dad and I have to go to Boston for a few hours. Anthony is going to stay here with you and Teresa." "Why can't I come?" "Boring grown-up stuff. But we'll be back before bedtime, and tomorrow we can look for crabs on the beach. Deal?" Mateo hugged her back. "Deal. But you have to promise to come back." "I promise." The words felt like a lie, but Lauren forced brightness into her voice. "I'll always come back to you." The drive to Revere was silent and tense. Lauren sat in the back of the SUV, wearing a thin Kevlar vest under her shirt, a tracking device sewn into her waistband, and a nearly invisible earpiece through which Nicholas could communicate with her. Marcus drove while 2 other guards followed in a second vehicle. Nicholas sat beside her, running through the plan for the 3rd time. "You get out of the car alone. Tyler will approach. You keep him talking, find out where Andrea is. Once we have visual confirmation that she's alive and her location, you step back and let my people handle the rest. And if he tries to touch me before then the snipers take the shot and we hope Andrea's location dies with him." Nicholas's voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of a man who'd made impossible choices before. "But ideally, we get both you and Andrea out safely." "Ideally," Lauren repeated. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline and fear flooding her system. She focused on her breathing, using the techniques her therapist had taught her. 4 counts in, 7 counts hold, 8 counts out. Nicholas noticed and took her hand. "You can still back out. We can find another way." "No, this is the right move. I can feel it." They arrived at the warehouse 30 minutes before the scheduled meeting. Nicholas's team was already in position, invisible among the industrial decay. 3 snipers on rooftops, 2 tactical units inside adjacent buildings, and Marcus coordinating everything through encrypted radio. Tyler had been given the location an hour ago. Ryan's call had been brief and professional. No emotion, just coordinates and a time. Tyler had laughed, a sound that made Ryan's skin crawl, and agreed immediately. At 4:55, Lauren stood alone in the empty parking lot outside the warehouse. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and the salt smell from the nearby ocean mixed with rust and old petroleum. She wore jeans and a simple blue shirt, her blonde hair pulled back, trying to look unthreatening and small. Nicholas's voice came through the earpiece. "We have movement. White van approaching from the east. Stay calm, stay focused. You're doing great." The van pulled into the lot and stopped 50 feet away. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened, and Tyler Grant stepped out. He looked different than Lauren remembered. Thinner, with a manic energy that radiated off him even at a distance. His brown hair was longer, unkempt. His pale blue eyes were wide and bright, with an emotion she couldn't name. "Princess," he called out, his voice carrying across the empty space. "I knew you'd come. I knew you couldn't resist." Lauren forced herself to stand still, to not run or collapse or scream. "Where's Andrea?" "Safe, for now. She's been very cooperative, not like you used to be. Remember how difficult you could be? How many times I had to teach you lessons?" "I remember." Lauren's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Let her go, Tyler. This is between us. She doesn't have anything to do with it. Tyler walked closer, his movements loose and unpredictable. But she has everything to do with it. She's leverage, Princess. Insurance that you won't try to run again. You're very good at running. I'm here now, not running. He was 15 feet away now, close enough that she could see the dark circles under his eyes, the twitch in his jaw. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? 18 months. 18 months of searching, following false leads, wasting my time. And then I got lucky. Someone showed me a photograph, asked if I recognized anyone. There you were, playing nanny to some mob boss's kid. Lauren's earpiece crackled. Nicholas's voice, urgent. Keep him talking. We're scanning the van. Who showed you the photograph? Lauren asked. Tyler grinned. New friends, powerful friends who don't like your boyfriend very much. They offered me a deal. Find you, get information about the kid's routine, and they'd pay me $500,000. Can you believe that? Your mistake of running to the wrong city made me rich. Horror washed through Lauren. They hadn't just been after her. They'd been planning to use Tyler to gather intelligence for kidnapping Mateo, an innocent 5-year-old boy, targeted because of mob politics. You were going to help them take a child, she said, not bothering to hide her disgust. I was going to do whatever it took to get you back. The kid was just bonus income. Tyler took another step closer. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with me, quietly and nicely. We're going to drive away from here, away from your new protector, and we're going to start over. I'll forgive you for leaving. We can be happy again, like we used to be. We were never happy. You hurt me every chance you got. I disciplined you when you misbehaved. There's a difference. But I've learned, Princess. I can be gentler. I can be patient. Just come with me. Lauren's earpiece crackled again. Andrea is in the van, alive but restrained. On my mark, you step back. 3, 2. Tyler's hand moved to his waistband, pulling out a gun that caught the late sunlight. Or maybe I just shoot you right here. Save myself the trouble of retraining you. What do you think? Would that be easier? Everything happened at once. The crack of a rifle shot echoed across the parking lot. Tyler jerked backward, a red bloom spreading across his shoulder. He fired wildly, the shot going wide. Lauren dove to the ground as instructed, covering her head. More gunshots, controlled and precise. One hit Tyler's hand, sending his weapon spinning away. Another hit his leg, dropping him to the ground. He screamed, clutching his wounds, blood pooling beneath him. 2 tactical teams swarmed from the buildings. One group surrounded Tyler while the other breached the van. Lauren heard Andrea's muffled cries, then voices confirming she was alive. Tyler was still screaming, his hand reaching for something in his boot. A backup weapon, small and deadly. He raised it with his good hand, aiming at Lauren where she lay on the pavement. The final shot was clean and professional, right between his eyes. Tyler Grant collapsed backward and went still. Lauren stared at his body, unable to process that it was over, that the man who'd haunted her nightmares for 18 months was simply gone. No more running, no more fear, no more looking over her shoulder. Strong hands pulled her up. Nicholas wrapped his arms around her, and Lauren realized she was shaking violently, her teeth chattering despite the warm evening air. It's over, Nicholas murmured into her hair. He can't hurt you anymore. You're safe. Medics rushed to the van where Andrea was being carefully extracted. She was dehydrated and terrified but alive. No major injuries. Ryan appeared, pulling his sister into his arms, both of them crying. Ryan looked over Andrea's head at Lauren and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Lauren nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. The cleanup was efficient and professional. Tyler's body was removed, the van towed, the blood hosed away. By the time police arrived, called anonymously about suspicious activity, there was nothing to find. Just another abandoned warehouse in a forgotten industrial area. The drive back to Cape Cod passed in a haze. Lauren sat pressed against Nicholas's side, watching the landscape blur past the window. Her mind kept replaying the moment Tyler fell. The look of surprise on his face as he realized he'd lost. She should feel guilty about his death. Should be horrified that she'd played a role in it. Instead, She felt hollow and relieved and exhausted beyond measure. "You're in shock," Nicholas said quietly. "That's normal. When we get back, you're going to rest, and tomorrow we'll find you someone to talk to, a therapist who specializes in trauma." "I already had therapy." "This is different trauma. Witnessing a death, even one that needed to happen, leaves marks. We'll deal with them together." Back at the beach house, Mateo was already asleep, worn out from a day of playing with Anthony. Teresa had prepared a light dinner that Lauren couldn't eat. She sat at the table pushing food around her plate, while Nicholas explained to Anthony what had happened in careful coded language. Finally, she excused herself and went to her room. She showered, washing away the smell of gunpowder and blood and fear, and then collapsed onto the bed fully clothed. Sleep came in fractured pieces, broken by images of Tyler falling, of Andrea's terrified eyes, of the casual efficiency with which Nicholas's team had ended a life. But underneath the horror was something else. Freedom. For the first time in 18 months, Lauren could think about the future without Tyler's shadow looming over it. When she woke in the middle of the night, Nicholas was sitting in the chair by her window, watching over her. "You should be sleeping," she mumbled. "So should you." "Can't." "Keep seeing it." Nicholas moved to sit on the edge of her bed. "It will get easier. The images will fade, become less vivid, but they might never completely go away. That's the cost of surviving something like this. Worth it, though." "He's gone." "Really? Truly gone?" "Yes. And their direct reason to come after you is gone. Tyler was their only connection to you, their only leverage. With him dead and his information proving unreliable, they're unlikely to risk a move. Still, we stay careful until the dust settles." Lauren reached for his hand. "So it's over. All of it. All of it," Nicholas confirmed. "You're safe now. We both are." She pulled him down beside her, and they lay together in the darkness, two people who'd survived their own separate hells and somehow found each other in the aftermath. Outside, the ocean whispered against the shore, constant and eternal, carrying away the last traces of fear into the endless night. The first 4 days after Tyler's death passed in a fog. Lauren moved through the beach house like a ghost, eating when Nicholas placed food in front of her, sleeping in fitful bursts, and spending hours staring at the ocean without really seeing it. Her mind kept circling back to that moment in the parking lot. The crack of the rifle, Tyler's body crumpling to the ground. She should feel guilty. She should be horrified that her actions, her agreement to be bait, had led to a man's death. Instead, she felt nothing but a vast, echoing emptiness where fear used to live. Nicholas stayed close those first days, working from the beach house instead of returning to Boston, his presence steady and grounding. He didn't try to force conversation or tell her how she should feel. He just existed in the same space, available if she needed him, patient when she couldn't find words. On the third day, a woman named Dr. Sarah Bennett arrived at the house. She was in her 40s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put Lauren at ease. "Mr. Pellegrini explained the situation," Dr. Bennett said, as they sat on the deck overlooking the ocean. "I specialize in trauma recovery, particularly for individuals who've experienced or witnessed violence. I want you to know that whatever you're feeling right now is valid. There's no right or wrong way to process what happened." Lauren found herself talking, the words spilling out in disconnected fragments. The burns, the abuse, the 18 months of running, the terror of seeing Tyler again, and finally the strange relief of watching him fall. "Doctor." Bennett listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions, but mostly letting Lauren set the pace. "It's common for survivors to feel conflicted after their abuser dies," Dr. Bennett said. "Relief mixed with guilt, freedom tinged with grief for what could have been if things had been different. All of those emotions can coexist." "I don't feel guilty," Lauren admitted. "Is that wrong?" "No. Some people do, some don't. You survived something terrible, fought to build a new life, and then had to face your abuser one final time to save an innocent person. That's not something to feel guilty about. That's courage." The sessions continued daily. Slowly, the fog began to lift. Lauren started sleeping through the night, eating full meals, engaging with Matteo when he bounded into rooms with his endless energy and questions. On the fourth day, Nicholas received a call that made his expression darken. He stepped outside to take it, and when he returned an hour later, his jaw was tight with tension. "I need to go to Boston," he said. "There are political complications from Tyler's death that need to be handled personally." Lauren's stomach dropped. "The Russians." "Yes. Tyler was their informant, and his death happened on my watch, in an operation I organized. That requires explanation and likely compensation. I'm meeting with Dmitry Volkov tomorrow afternoon." "Is it dangerous?" "Everything I do carries risk, but this is necessary. If I don't address this directly, it could escalate into something much worse." Lauren watched him pack a bag, anxiety coiling in her chest. "How long will you be gone?" "A few days at most. Marcus will stay here with you and Matteo. You're safe." She wanted to beg him not to go, to stay where she could see him, where she knew he was alive. But Nicholas had responsibilities beyond her, the entire organization that depended on his leadership. "Be careful," she said instead. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her forehead. "Always." Nicholas left that evening, taking 2 guards with him. Lauren tried to maintain normalcy for Matteo, playing games and reading stories, but her mind was in Boston, imagining worst-case scenarios. 2 days later, Nicholas called with an update. The meeting went better than expected. Volkov accepted my explanation that Tyler was acting on personal obsession rather than their orders. I provided evidence from his apartment showing he'd lied about his access to information. They've agreed to consider the matter closed in exchange for territorial concessions in South Boston. So it's over? Really over? The political part, yes. Now we can focus on moving forward. During Nicholas's absence, something shifted in the beach house. Matteo started drawing pictures obsessively, filling page after page with crayon figures. Lauren noticed that the drawings always featured 3 people: a tall man, a smaller woman, and a child. Sometimes they were at the beach, sometimes in a house, but they were always together. "Who are these people?" she asked one afternoon, sitting beside him at the table. Matteo looked up with serious brown eyes. "That's Dad, and that's you, and that's me. We're a family." Lauren's throat tightened. "We are family, sweetheart. Like a real family. Not just because you work for Dad." She understood what he was really asking. Children were perceptive about adult relationships, sensing the shift between her and Nicholas even if they hadn't explicitly discussed it. "Like a real family," she confirmed. "Your dad and I care about each other very much." "Good, because I want you to stay forever. Not like Mom, who had to leave. You have to promise you'll stay." Lauren pulled him into a hug. "I promise I'll try my hardest to stay. Sometimes life is unpredictable, but I promise I'll always fight to come back to you." When Nicholas returned 3 days later, he brought Dr. Emma Walsh with him, a child psychologist who specialized in family transitions. She spent an hour with Matteo, talking about his drawings and his feelings about the changes in his household. Afterward, she reported to Nicholas and Lauren in the study. "He's adjusting remarkably well. There's some anxiety about loss, which is natural given his mother's death. But he's resilient. The stability you're both providing is exactly what he needs." "What about the relationship between Lauren and me?" Nicholas asked. "Is he ready for that?" "More than ready. In fact, I think he's been hoping for it. Children need to see the adults they love finding happiness. It gives them permission to be happy too." By the end of the 3rd week, they returned to Boston. The mansion felt different now, less like a gilded cage and more like home. Lauren moved through the familiar rooms with new confidence, no longer looking over her shoulder for threats that no longer existed. One evening, Nicholas asked her to dress nicely for dinner. "We're going out. There are people I want you to meet." Lauren chose a simple black dress, one that showed her arms and shoulders without self-consciousness. The scars were part of her story now, not something to hide, but something that proved her strength. The restaurant was called Venetian, an upscale Italian place in the North End. They were escorted to a private room where 6 men in expensive suits already waited. Anthony Brunarelli, who Lauren recognized from Cape Cod, stood when they entered. "Gentlemen," Nicholas said, his hand resting on the small of Lauren's back. "I'd like you to meet Lauren Mitchell. Lauren, these are my captains and trusted advisors." The men studied her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Lauren met their gazes steadily, refusing to be intimidated. Anthony spoke first. "Miss Mitchell, Nicholas has told us what happened with Tyler Grant. You showed considerable courage." "I did what needed to be done to save Andrea," Lauren replied. "Anyone would have done the same." "Not anyone," one of the other men said. "Most people would have run. You stood your ground." Dinner was a careful dance of conversation. The men asked subtle questions, testing her, evaluating whether she was worthy of Nicholas's attention. Lauren answered honestly, not trying to impress them but simply being herself. Halfway through the meal, Anthony leaned close and said quietly, "I was skeptical when Nicholas first mentioned you. Thought you might be a liability, someone who'd make him weak. I was wrong. You make him stronger." "How so?" "He's been half alive since Isabella died, going through motions but not really living. You brought him back. That's worth more than any tactical advantage." After dinner, Nicholas walked Lauren through the restaurant's kitchen to meet the staff, introducing her to everyone by name. They treated him with respect bordering on reverence, but there was genuine warmth too. This wasn't a feared boss, but a respected leader. In the car ride home, Lauren said, "You wanted their approval. Of me. Of us. I wanted them to see what I see. That you're not a weakness but a strength. And I think they do now." 2 days later, Nicholas found Lauren in the garden with Matteo. The boy was teaching her the names of different flowers, his small hands gentle as he pointed out petals and stems. "Can I speak with you?" Nicholas asked. Inside, Lauren followed him to his study, her heart beating faster. His expression was serious, almost nervous, which was unusual for someone as controlled as Nicholas Pellegrini. "I've been thinking about our arrangement," he began. "You came here as Matteo's nanny, an employee. But that's not what you are anymore, and I don't want to keep pretending it is." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to move into the main house permanently. Not as staff, but as part of the family. I want you to have your own space, your own life, but intertwined with ours." "With mine?" Lauren's breath caught. "Nicholas, I'm not asking you to marry me or make dramatic commitments you're not ready for. I'm just asking you to stop living in the margins and step fully into the life we're building together." She thought about the past weeks, about the way Matteo's face lit up when she entered a room, about the quiet comfort of falling asleep with Nicholas's arms around her, about feeling safe for the first time in years. "I have a condition," she said. "Name it." "I want to go back to school. I had 2 years of a psychology degree before I met Tyler and everything fell apart. I want to finish it, specialize in child psychology. I want to help kids who've been through trauma, who need someone who understands." Nicholas smiled. "That's not a condition. That's a plan I fully support. I don't want you to pay for it. I'll apply for financial aid, take student loans, do whatever I need to. I need to do this myself." His expression flickered with something that might have been frustration, but he nodded. "I won't pay tuition, but I can offer flexible hours, support with Matteo's schedule, a quiet place to study. Those things I can provide without compromising your independence. Deal." They shook hands formally, then both laughed at the absurdity of it. Nicholas pulled her close and kissed her properly, deep and thorough, until they were both breathless. "There's one more thing," he said. "I want you to meet my parents, properly as my partner, not just Matteo's nanny." Lauren's stomach flipped. "Your parents. Right. When?" "This weekend. Dinner at their house in Brookline. Fair warning, my mother is protective and my father is suspicious of everyone. It won't be easy." Noted. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Lauren dressed in a burgundy dress that was elegant without being flashy, styled her hair carefully, and tried to calm her racing nerves. The Pellegrini family home in Brookline was beautiful, a historic brownstone with ivy climbing the facade. Nicholas's mother, Francesca, answered the door. She was in her 60s, elegant and sharp-eyed, with silver hair and the same intensity as her son. "So you're Lauren," Francesca said, looking her up and down. "Nicholas has told us very little." "Mom, be nice," Nicholas said, kissing his mother's cheek. "I'm always nice. Come in. Your father is in the dining room complaining about the wine temperature." Dinner was tense for the first half hour. Nicholas's father, Antonio, asked pointed questions about Lauren's background, her education, her family. She answered honestly, not trying to hide her past or present herself as something she wasn't. Then Francesca noticed Lauren's scars when she reached for water. The older woman went very still. "Those burns," Francesca said quietly. "I had marks like that once before I met Antonio. Different shape, but the same story." The atmosphere shifted immediately. Francesca started talking, sharing her own history of abuse and escape, creating a bridge of understanding across the table. Antonio's expression softened as he watched his wife open up. By the end of the evening, Francesca was holding Lauren's hand and telling her stories about Nicholas as a child. Antonio was discussing the best undergraduate psychology programs in Boston, offering connections he had at various universities. As they left, Francesca pulled Lauren aside. "You're good for him. Good for Matteo. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, not even yourself." "Thank you," Lauren said, meaning it deeply. In the car ride home, Nicholas took her hand. "That went better than I expected. Your mother is amazing. She recognizes strength when she sees it. You survived something terrible, and came out the other side still capable of love and trust. That's not common." Back at the mansion, they found Matteo asleep on the couch, Teresa keeping watch over him with a gentle smile. Nicholas carried his son upstairs, while Lauren helped Teresa clean up the remains of the boy's evening snack. "He drew you another picture," Teresa said, showing Lauren a crayon drawing stuck to the refrigerator. "Said it's the family he wants." The drawing showed 3 figures in front of a house, all holding hands, all smiling. Above them, written in Matteo's careful 5-year-old handwriting, were 3 words: "My new family." Lauren felt tears prick her eyes. She'd lost so much to Tyler, so much time and confidence and peace. But somehow, in the aftermath of that loss, she'd found something she hadn't even known she was searching for: a place to belong, people to love, and the freedom to become whoever she chose to be. Nicholas found her in the kitchen, still staring at the drawing. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Ready for this?" he asked quietly. "Ready for the chaos and complications that come with being part of this family?" Lauren leaned back into his warmth, watching through the window as lights flickered across the Boston skyline. Somewhere out there were challenges yet to come, obstacles they'd have to navigate together. But for the first time in years, she felt ready to face them. "Ready," she said simply. And she was. 6 months transformed everything, while somehow changing nothing essential. Lauren found herself standing in the kitchen of the Pellegrini mansion on a Thursday evening, textbooks spread across the counter while she prepared Matteo's favorite pasta dish. The boy sat at the table working on his homework, occasionally asking for help with spelling words that gave him trouble. "How do you spell astronaut?" he called out. "Sound it out first," Lauren replied, stirring the sauce. "What do you hear?" This was her life now. Student, caregiver, partner to Nicholas, and somehow all 3 roles fit together like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. The evening psychology program at Boston University had accepted her application in late September, and she'd thrown herself into coursework with the intensity of someone making up for lost time. Nicholas walked in just as she was draining the pasta, his jacket already removed, tie loosened. He kissed her cheek in greeting before moving to Matteo. "How was school today, little man?" "Good. We learned about the solar system. Did you know Jupiter has 67 moons?" "I did not know that. That's impressive." Matteo beamed under his father's attention. "Ren helped me with my project. We made a model of Saturn with the rings and everything." Ren. The nickname had appeared organically about 3 months ago. Matteo's own invention when calling her Lauren felt too formal. But Mom didn't fit either. Nicholas had asked if she minded, and Lauren had assured him she loved it. The name felt like belonging without erasing Isabella's memory. They ate dinner together, the 3 of them around the kitchen table rather than the formal dining room. This had become their routine. Nicholas made it home by 6 whenever possible, and they shared this time as a family. Afterward, While Matteo played or watched television, Lauren and Nicholas would sit together reviewing her coursework or discussing his day in the careful language they'd developed. He never told her details that could endanger her, never shared information that might make her complicit in illegal activities. But he told her enough, when territories shifted, when negotiations got tense, when he'd be traveling for meetings that might be dangerous. She learned to read his moods, to know when he needed space and when he needed her close. Tonight, Nicholas seemed lighter than usual. After Matteo went to bed, he poured them both wine and led Lauren to his study. "I have something to discuss with you," he said, his tone serious, but his eyes warm. "It concerns Matteo's birthday next week." "Right, the big 6. He's been counting down days." Lauren smiled. "He wants a superhero cake and for everyone to go swimming. I already ordered the cake from that bakery Teresa recommended. I want to have a small party, family and a few of his friends from school. Nothing elaborate, just cake and games in the backyard." "That sounds perfect. He'll love it." Nicholas set down his wine glass and took both her hands. "Lauren, these past 6 months have been the happiest I've been since Isabella died. You've brought light back into this house, given Matteo the stability and love he desperately needed, and made me believe I could have a future beyond just surviving." Her heart started beating faster. "Nicholas, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. Completely, terrifyingly, permanently. And I want you to be part of this family officially, not just in practice but in name." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Lauren Mitchell, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, but not ostentatious. A single diamond set in white gold, elegant and timeless. Lauren stared at it, her mind racing through a dozen thoughts at once. This was fast, maybe too fast. They'd known each other less than a year. She was still in school, still building her life back together, still learning who she was outside of trauma and fear. But she was also deeply, irrevocably in love with this complicated, dangerous, gentle man who'd saved her in more ways than one. "I have a condition," she said, echoing the conversation they'd had months ago about moving in. Nicholas smiled. "Of course you do. I don't want a big wedding. No spectacle, no hundreds of guests, no showing off wealth. Just family and people who matter. Simple and meaningful. Done. Anything else? I finished my degree. Marriage doesn't change that. I'm still going to graduate. Still going to work with kids who need help. This is my path, and I need you to respect that. I wouldn't dream of interfering. Lauren, I don't want to own you or control you. I want to stand beside you while you become whoever you're meant to be." She looked at the ring again, then at his face. "Then yes, I'll marry you." Nicholas slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss that made her forget every reason this might be complicated. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. On us. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." They told Matteo the next morning over breakfast. The boy's reaction was explosive joy, jumping up and down while shouting that he knew it. He knew they would get married. He'd been right all along. "Does this mean Ren will be here forever?" he asked, suddenly serious. "Forever," Nicholas confirmed. "She'll be part of our family officially. But she's not my new mom, right? Because I still have a mom in heaven." Lauren knelt down to his level. "I'll never try to replace your mom, sweetheart. She was special and important, and she'll always be your mother. I'm just someone else who loves you very much and wants to be part of your life. Is that okay?" Matteo considered this carefully, then nodded. "Okay. Can I call you Ren still?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you." The birthday party the following week was perfect in its simplicity. A dozen children ran through the backyard, played games organized by Teresa, and devoured superhero-themed cake. Nicholas's parents attended, Francesca helping in the kitchen, while Antonio supervised the children's water balloon fight with surprising enthusiasm. As the sun began setting and parents collected their exhausted children, Nicholas gathered everyone who remained. Family and close friends stood in a loose circle in the garden, while Matteo opened presents. "Before we finish celebrating," Nicholas said, his hand finding Lauren's, "I have an announcement. Lauren has agreed to marry me. "We wanted to share this news with all of you on this special day." The response was warm and genuine. Francesca hugged Lauren tightly, whispering, "Welcome to the family officially." Antonio shook Nicholas's hand with pride evident in his expression. Anthony Brunarelli, who'd become an unexpected friend to Lauren over the months, raised his glass in toast. "To new beginnings," Anthony said, "and to the strength it takes to build them." They set the wedding date for late October, giving them 2 months to plan. Lauren insisted on keeping it small, and Nicholas honored that request. The Cape Cod beach house, where they'd first felt truly safe together, would be the location. 50 guests maximum, just family and the people who mattered most. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of classes, studying, wedding planning, and normal family life. Lauren found a dress at a boutique in Boston, a champagne-colored gown with delicate gold embroidery along the bodice. The most important feature was the sleeveless design. "Are you sure?" the boutique owner asked when Lauren chose it. "We have similar styles with sleeves if you prefer." "I'm sure," Lauren said, looking at her reflection. The scars on her shoulder and arms were visible, undeniable, but they were part of her story, and she was done hiding them. The morning of the wedding dawned cool and clear, October air crisp with the promise of coming winter. Lauren woke in her room at the beach house, surrounded by Teresa and Francesca, who'd insisted on helping her prepare. "You look beautiful," Teresa said, fastening the tiny buttons at the back of the dress. Francesca handed her a small velvet box. "Something borrowed. These were my mother's earrings. She wore them when she married my father in Sicily 60 years ago." Lauren put them on with shaking fingers, touched by the gesture. "Thank you. For everything. For accepting me. You make my son happy. You make my grandson feel safe and loved. That's all any mother wants." The ceremony was held on the beach as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Chairs were arranged in neat rows facing the ocean, white fabric fluttering in the breeze. 50 people who'd played essential roles in their lives watched as Matteo walked down the aisle first, carrying rings on a small pillow, his pride evident in every step. Then Lauren appeared, walking alone as she'd insisted. No one giving her away because she belonged to herself first and was choosing this commitment freely. The champagne dress caught the golden light, and she heard the soft gasps as people noticed her scars on full display. Nicholas waited at the altar, his expression transforming as he watched her approach. Love and pride and something that looked like awe. When she reached him, he took both her hands. The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows, no lengthy speeches or elaborate productions. Just 2 people promising to love and support each other through whatever came next. When the officiant pronounced them married, Nicholas kissed her thoroughly, earning cheers and applause from their guests. But then he did something unexpected. He leaned down and pressed gentle kisses to her scarred shoulder, to the twisted skin where Tyler had burned her, to the faint white lines on her arms. A public declaration that he loved all of her, scars included, that her past made her stronger rather than damaged. Lauren felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they were good tears, healing tears. The reception was held in a tent on the beach house lawn. Dancing, laughter, food, and toasts that ranged from humorous to deeply moving. Ryan Cooper stood up, his sister Andrea beside him, and raised his glass. 6 months ago, Lauren saved my sister's life by putting herself in danger. That kind of courage is rare. Nicholas, you found someone who matches your strength with her own. Don't ever take that for granted. I won't, Nicholas promised, his arm around Lauren's waist. As the evening progressed and guests began leaving, Lauren found herself standing with Andrea by the water's edge. The younger woman had been quiet most of the day, but she'd thanked Lauren privately for what happened in that Revere parking lot. "I know this is complicated," Andrea said. "The way you and Nicholas met, the violence that brought you together, all of it. But I see how you look at each other. That's real. Hold on to it. I plan to." They left for a brief honeymoon in Vermont. 3 days at a quiet inn where no one knew who they were. Just Nicholas and Lauren, without the weight of his reputation or her past. They hiked through fall foliage, ate at small local restaurants, and spent long evenings talking about the future they were building together. When they returned, Life settled into a new normal. Lauren threw herself into her final year of coursework, determined to graduate on schedule. Nicholas balanced his business responsibilities with being present for his family, a juggling act that sometimes failed, but that he never stopped attempting. The following spring, Lauren walked across the stage at Boston University's graduation ceremony, accepting her diploma in psychology with Nicholas and Matteo cheering from the audience. She'd maintained a near-perfect grade point average while working with Matteo and building her marriage, proving to herself that she was capable of anything she set her mind to. The nonprofit organization approached her 2 weeks after graduation. They specialized in providing therapy to children who'd experienced trauma, working with kids in foster care, abuse survivors, and those who'd witnessed violence. The pay was modest, but the work was exactly what Lauren had trained for. What she didn't know until her 3rd week was that Nicholas had been anonymously funding the organization for years, a fact she only discovered when she saw his signature on old donation records. "You knew I'd end up here," she accused him one evening, more amused than angry. "I hoped you might. But you earned the job on your own merits. My donations had nothing to do with their hiring decision. Still manipulative, strategically supportive," he corrected, pulling her close. "There's a difference." 15 months after the wedding, Lauren stood in the bathroom of their bedroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test in her shaking hands. They'd talked about having children someday, but someday had suddenly become now. Nicholas found her sitting on the edge of the bathtub, still holding the test. His face went through a rapid progression of expressions: surprise, concern, then pure joy. "We're having a baby?" Apparently. He knelt in front of her, his hands gentle on her knees. "How do you feel about this?" Terrified, excited, completely overwhelmed. "Is this real? Are we really doing this? We're really doing this." Nicholas kissed her softly. "And it's going to be perfect. Chaotic and exhausting and perfect," they told Matteo a few weeks later, once the pregnancy was confirmed and stable. The boy, now 7, processed the news with typical childhood logic. "Will the baby share my room?" "The baby will have its own room," Nicholas explained. "But you'll be a big brother. That's an important job. Can I teach the baby stuff? Like how to build things and find the best hiding spots?" "Absolutely. You'll be the expert." 5 months into the pregnancy, Lauren stood in front of the bathroom mirror examining her changing body. The scars on her shoulder and arms were still visible, but now they shared space with the gentle curve of her growing belly. New marks, happy marks, evidence of life continuing despite everything that had tried to stop it. Nicholas appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, hands resting on the bump. "What are you thinking? That I never imagined this. Standing here, pregnant, married to someone who actually loves me. Nearly 2 years ago I was running from Tyler, convinced I'd never be safe or happy again. Now I'm about to have a daughter who will never know fear the way you did, who will grow up seeing her mother's strength and her father's devotion, who will have a big brother who already loves her." Lauren leaned back into his warmth. "We're really doing this. Building a family. Creating something good out of all the pain. That's what survivors do. They take broken pieces and build something beautiful." On a warm afternoon in late May, Lauren finished her therapy session with a 7-year-old girl who'd witnessed domestic violence. The child was making progress, slowly learning that the violence wasn't her fault, that she deserved safety and love. As Lauren walked the girl out to her foster mother, she felt the familiar satisfaction of work that mattered. She drove home to the mansion, her expanding belly making the car seat uncomfortable. Inside, she found Matteo in the garden with Nicholas, both of them covered in dirt from planting vegetables for the summer. "Look, Ren," Matteo called out. "Dad is teaching me about tomatoes. We're going to grow them and then make sauce like you do." "That sounds amazing." Lauren lowered herself carefully into a garden chair, watching her husband and stepson work together. The boy had Isabella's coloring and Nicholas's intensity, and he'd grown into a confident, happy 7-year-old who rarely had nightmares anymore. Nicholas looked up, his eyes finding hers across the garden. The same garden where everything had started, where juice had spilled and scars had been revealed, and both their lives had changed forever. His expression held everything words couldn't capture. Love, gratitude, wonder at the family they'd created. Later that evening, after Matteo was asleep and the house was quiet, Nicholas and Lauren sat in their bedroom. He had his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter kick and shift. "She's active tonight," he observed. "She's always active. Takes after her father. God help us if she has my stubbornness and your determination. We'll never win an argument." Lauren laughed, the sound light and free. "Worth it, though. Every challenge, every complication, all of it. This life we built is worth everything it took to get here." Nicholas looked at her. Really looked, seeing not just the woman he'd married, but the survivor who'd fought her way back from darkness, the student who'd persevered through coursework while healing from trauma, the therapist helping other broken children find their way. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Staying with me, accepting this complicated, dangerous life?" "Never. Not once. You gave me safety when I had none, love when I thought I was unlovable, and a family when I was completely alone. How could I regret that?" She touched her scarred shoulder, the twisted skin that used to make her flinch in mirrors. "These scars used to be a reminder of everything Tyler took from me. My confidence, my peace, years of my life. But now there's something else. They're proof that I survived, that I was strong enough to escape, brave enough to testify against him in that parking lot, and resilient enough to build this life." Nicholas kissed each scar gently, a ritual he'd maintained since their wedding day. "You're the strongest person I know. And our daughter is going to have the best role model. Our daughter is going to have 2 excellent parents and a big brother who's already planning which superheroes to introduce her to. She's going to be fine." They sat together in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd found each other in unlikely circumstances and built something real from the rubble of their separate traumas. Outside, the Boston night hummed with distant traffic and city sounds. Inside, they had created a sanctuary, a place where scars were honored rather than hidden, where love was complicated but genuine, and where family meant chosen connection rather than just blood. Lauren felt their daughter move again, a strong kick against Nicholas's palm. Life continuing, growing, becoming something beautiful. She thought about the terrified woman who'd arrived at this mansion almost 2 years ago, hiding her scars and her past, convinced she'd never be safe or whole again. That woman would be amazed to see where she ended up, would be proud of the strength it took to heal, to trust, to love again despite every reason not to. "Thank you," Lauren said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for not looking away when you discovered my scars, for giving me space to heal and time to find myself again, for building this life with me." Nicholas pulled her closer, careful of her belly. "Thank you for taking a chance on a dangerous man with a complicated life and a traumatized son, for bringing light back into our darkness, for being brave enough to stay." They stayed like that as night deepened outside, the 3 of them soon to be 4. A family built on honesty and acceptance, and the radical choice to love despite risk. Lauren's scars remained visible, permanent marks that would never completely fade, but they no longer defined her. They were simply part of the map that had led her here, to this moment, to this life she'd never imagined possible. And that was the greatest triumph of all.